I betrayed a decade of love for a fleeting spark. My confession about secrecy, the first time, and the moment I realized I had destroyed our future. My name is Sofia. I'm 24 and I've been with Pablo since high school. He's 26. We've known each other forever, like, literally grew up together, and we started dating when we were teenagers. We were each other's firsts in so many ways, and that kind of history made us close in a way that's hard to describe. Our relationship has always been full of love, companionship, trust, and all the good solid stuff people talk about. Of course we've had fights and arguments, but overall it's been wonderful. Lately something weird has been happening at work. A new guy showed up a few weeks ago, Fernando. He's really handsome, attentive, and he makes it obvious that he likes me. At first I brushed it off as normal coworker friendliness. But the way he looks at me, the little jokes he makes, and the way he finds reasons to talk to me started to get under my skin. I know how this sounds. I love Pablo. He's the love of my life. We've been through so much together, built a life, got jobs, and keep moving forward. But sharing so much of your life with someone from such a young age somehow leaves you curious about what else is out there. Not because I'm ungrateful, but because curiosity is human. I didn't expect to feel like this, and it's been confusing. Fernando flirts in a way that's obvious, not subtle. He compliments me in front of others and then finds ways to talk to me alone. He invited me out a couple of times. I always ignore it or make some excuse. So far, I haven't gone out with him. I tell myself it's because I love Pablo and because I know where my heart truly is. But every time Fernando is around, I feel like a teenager again, silly and excited and nervous, and that's terrifying because I'm also someone in a relationship who is supposed to be settled and loyal. It feels like two different versions of myself live inside me right now. At home, everything feels normal on the surface. Pablo doesn't notice anything. He thinks I'm stressed from work sometimes, and he tries to help. He cooks, he asks how my day was, he keeps doing the little things that make me love him more. But inside I feel torn. At work I act like I have a crush on someone else, and at home I snap at Pablo over small things. It makes me feel like a terrible person. I keep asking myself why I'm letting this happen, why I'm not stronger, why I let my curiosity grow into something that nags at me every day. I haven't told anyone about any of this. Not my friends, not my family, no one. The only people who know are you, whoever's reading this. It's strange to confess like this, like I'm writing in a diary in public. I guess that's what social media is now, a place to admit things we wouldn't tell out loud. I don't want to hurt Pablo. I don't want to betray him. And yet I can't silence these feelings that keep bubbling up every time Fernando is around. I keep trying to ignore him. I try to avoid lunches and after-work drinks. I avoid his messages. But the attention is persistent, and sometimes I wonder how long I can keep pretending nothing is happening. The worst part is this double life I feel like I'm starting to live, in my head at least. I love Pablo. I really do. He is my person. But the fact that we've been together since we were kids makes me wonder if we've also stayed inside a loop. Growing together, yes, but maybe without noticing how the world kept changing. Is it possible to want new experiences and still keep the love you had? I don't know. I don't have the right answers. I'm scared of making a mistake that could ruin the best thing I have. Yet the pull toward novelty feels alive in a way that surprises me. It's not even that Fernando said anything explicit. It's the way he laughs at my jokes, remembers tiny details about what I say, and the way he looks at me over the office noise. He makes me feel seen in a way that's different from home. Not better, just different. That difference is what confuses me the most. Am I just lonely for novelty? Am I missing emotional excitement? Or is this a real signal that something is changing inside me? I've started noticing small changes in my behavior. I check my phone more when I see his name flash. I plan my outfits thinking about the chance I might bump into him. I catch myself replaying tiny moments in my head, like when he asked me about my weekend or when he brought coffee to my desk by accident. The guilt sits heavy, but the curiosity sits heavier. Some nights I lie awake thinking about what would happen if I called him. Other nights I cry because I don't want to lose Pablo. I swing between wanting to be honest and wanting to hide this whole thing in a drawer and shut it. If I'm honest, part of me also wonders if this is normal. People meet new people all the time. We grow, we change. Maybe attraction doesn't mean betrayal. Maybe it's a test of what I value. Still, the secrecy eats at me. The idea that I might do something that could break Pablo's trust makes me sick. Yet, I can't pretend that the thought of finding out what could be on the other side doesn't make my stomach flip. It's a mess of feelings and I don't know which one to trust. Work has become a minefield of small moments. A coffee delivered, a corridor conversation that lasts a beat too long, a text that says, "Had a great time chatting," even when we only talked about a project. I keep telling myself to stop. I make rules. Don't reply. Don't accept invites. Don't engage in private jokes. So far I've followed them, mostly, but rules are easier to make than to keep. The more I resist, the more I notice the little things that make me human. Curiosity, desire for attention, the urge to test how much I can still feel alive. Sometimes I try to trace when this started. Was it the way Fernando sat at the table across from me that first morning? Or the slow way he learned my name and used it like it mattered? Maybe it was nothing, and maybe it was everything. I remember the first week he arrived. He asked about a project I was leading, then asked about my weekend plans, then told a dumb joke that made me laugh out loud. Laughing like that feels dangerous now, because it reminds me how easy it is to feel alive with someone new. Pablo and I have a history that is almost automatic. We have rituals. He wakes up earlier. He makes coffee and brings it to me when I stay in bed too long. He remembers small things like the exact way I like salt on my avocado. He knows how I take my tea, what song calms me down, and when I'm avoiding a conversation because something is wrong. Those things are built into who I am and who we are together. They are muscle memory. And that is why this situation hurts even more, because I know the strength of what we have, and I also know how fragile it can be when trust gets strained. At work, I find myself noticing the smallest gestures from Fernando. The way he leans in when we talk about a problem and actually listens. The way he compliments a decision I made in a meeting in front of the team. The way he remembers the name of the bar I mentioned liking months ago. It all reads like a slow, careful effort to get closer. I also notice how he glances at my phone when I step away, like he's trying to read a hint or an opening. That makes me uneasy, but it also makes me aware of how much my attention is pulled toward him. There are moments when I feel like two people at once. One who adores Pablo and the life we've built, and another who is magnetized by novelty. The first sits with loyalty and memory. The second craves a different feeling. I don't want to romanticize it. It's not like I've been unhappy with Pablo. In fact, we have been happy. But happiness can coexist with curiosity, and that paradox is killing me softly. I know it sounds like a cliché, but it is real and messy and not heroic at all. I try to be honest with myself and set boundaries. No alone conversations with Fernando outside work hours. No personal messages after 9. No accepting invitations that aren't group-related. I told myself these rules like they were armor. For a while it worked. But rules slip. A meeting runs late and he offers to drive me home, since it's on his way. A group after-work drink is actually just us and 2 others who left early. A message that says, "Hope you're okay," arrives on a day when I'm fragile. Those small breaches show how porous boundaries can be when someone is persistent. One night I lay in bed watching Pablo sleep. His face looked so peaceful. I wanted to wake him and tell him everything so we could fix it together. But there was a part of me that dreaded that conversation because admitting confusion out loud felt like opening a door I couldn't close. What if telling him hurts him more than what I'm already doing silently? What if bringing it up plants seeds that weren't there before? It's a terrifying thought. So I kept quiet and let the guilt gnaw at me. Guilt shows up in weird ways. I catch myself being short with Pablo over trivial things like the way he leaves dishes or how he squeezes the toothpaste. Those moments blow up inside me and leave me feeling petty and ashamed. I try to apologize later, and he is always forgiving. He thinks I'm under work stress. He doesn't know the real reason. The double life of feelings makes me soft and then sharp, and I hate that I cause him pain without him even understanding why. I think about time a lot. 10 years together is a serious chunk of life. We grew up through breakups with friends, finals, first jobs, and the small disasters that teach you who you are. We navigated our 20s together. There's comfort in that continuity. But I've also noticed that people who grow up together sometimes stop exploring alone. They default to each other and forget to test their individual edges. Is that my fault? Is it his? Is it just life? I don't want to place blame. I just want to understand how curiosity can feel like betrayal when paired with loyalty. I have an internal list of consequences I imagine every time I consider stepping over a line. How would Pablo react? Would he be devastated? Would he try to forgive me? Would our story be salvageable? I imagine him packing his things, the silent car ride, his eyes full of disbelief. I imagine the conversations with friends and family, awkward and raw. I imagine myself trying to explain years that suddenly feel complicated. Each scenario terrifies me enough to hold me back, yet curiosity still hums in the background like a constant, low alarm. At the same time, I daydream about what it would feel like to just try something new. Not to hurt, not to be reckless, but to learn about myself in ways that I haven't. Maybe that's selfish. Maybe it's necessary. I know there are no easy moral stickers to put on this. I'm aware that people will judge. Maybe you already are. But I'm writing this because the judgment feels less suffocating when I lay it out plainly. I want to be honest with myself before I have to be honest with anyone else. My friends would probably tell me to be careful. They'd also remind me that the grass isn't always greener. They know Pablo and they think he's good for me. They're the kind of people who'd say, remember why you chose him, and be fair to the person who's been with you through everything. They would be right. I keep imagining their faces when I tell them. I keep imagining lying to them if I can't keep my own truth together. The thought of losing their respect and the respect I have for myself is one of the reasons I haven't said a word to anyone. Work has become both a refuge and a trap. I like my job. I'm proud of what I do. But lately the parts of the day that used to feel routine now come with that underlying current of possibility. Every compliment from Fernando, every shared laugh, sends a pulse through my day that I can't ignore. At the same time, I'm terrified someone at work will notice a change and gossip will start. The last thing I want is this private chaos leaking into my professional life and forcing a messy confrontation that would hurt people I care about on multiple levels. People always talk about the right thing, like it's a simple choice. But life isn't a test with clear answers. Sometimes the right thing is messy. Sometimes you have to make a hard choice and accept that you may fail. I'm scared of making the wrong choice. I'm also scared of never finding out who I might be if I don't test my edges. It's such a juvenile thing to say, but it's also true. I find myself caught between being rational and being human, between duty and curiosity, between a steady life and the idea of something unknown. I wish there were a manual for this part of adult life. How to handle attraction when you're already committed, how to tell if it's just a whim or a signal of something deeper, how to avoid hurting people you love. But there isn't. There's only decisions we make and consequences we carry. For now, I'm doing my best to be honest in a private way, writing this. Maybe that helps. Maybe it doesn't. What I do know is that the next few weeks will be critical. Either this fades like a passing storm, or it becomes something I can't ignore. I'm trying to hold on to hope that I can choose without losing myself or the people I love. I don't want to leave this as some dramatic cliffhanger just to be flashy. I'm genuinely scared. I want to give myself time to think and to feel without making impulsive choices. I'm not proud of the secrecy. I'm not proud of the way I feel. But I'm being honest, and hopefully that honesty is a step toward clarity. I'll write again when something changes. I've been with Pablo since high school. We built a life, jobs, routines, small rituals, and then a new coworker, Fernando, arrived. He started paying attention in a way that pulled at me. I love Pablo, but Fernando's presence stirred things I didn't expect. I'm trying to ignore it, set boundaries, and not hurt anyone, but the feelings linger. Fernando hasn't given up. At first it was small. A DM with a joke only we shared, a coffee, because you looked tired, a compliment in a meeting. I told myself it was harmless. Then he began to create moments that felt private. He remembered tiny details I offhandedly mentioned. He would laugh twice at the same line just to keep a connection. It made me feel seen in a different way, and I hated that I enjoyed it. The split between work and home grew obvious. At the office I was bright, quick to laugh. At home I was short and on edge. Pablo asked if I was okay, and I said, work stress. He offered to help, and he meant it. That made me love him and hate what I was hiding. The guilt sat heavy in my chest. Fernando's invitations escalated. Drinks after work, he'd text. I'd ignore it. Gallery this weekend, he'd ask. I'd give a vague reply. He shifted tactics, suggesting group plans that quietly narrowed to just the two of us. He was patient and clever. When colleagues left early, we'd end up talking. He touched my hand during a story, brief and casual, but it left me shaky. I tried rules. No private messages, no accepting invites, keep things public. Rules helped for a day. Then a late meeting meant he offered a lift, since it's on my way. A team get-together ended with us in a corner booth. Persistence wore down defenses. I found myself planning outfits without meaning to, checking my phone when his name popped up, and replaying small interactions in my head. At home, small irritations with Pablo multiplied. He left dishes out and I snapped. He asked a simple question and I answered sharply. He'd look hurt and I would apologize, then push him away again. The secrecy made me defensive. I felt like I was being two people, one who basks in new attention at work, another who causes pain at home without understanding why. One Thursday, the team celebrated at a bar. The group thinned and suddenly it was just us. He told a story and brushed my hand. I pulled away inside but kept smiling. After that night, he asked for coffee more often and found reasons to stand by my desk. The attention that once felt flattering began to feel like pressure. I started to feel cornered by my curiosity. Pablo noticed distance and sometimes asked direct questions. Are you seeing someone? He'd say half joking, half worried. I laughed it off. He trusted me and that trust hit me like a weight. Every time he showed tenderness, the guilt tightened. I thought of confessing, imagined the relief, but I feared the damage. Would telling him make him leave? Would it break the life we'd built? Those fears shut me up. Then he gave me 2 tickets to a gallery opening as if it were a casual favor. No pressure, he wrote. I accepted and felt the other ticket imply a companion. My hands trembled holding it. Fernando's messages warmed, it'll be chill. We'll be just friends, I promise. Each text felt like a net. My friends noticed I'm quieter. When we meet, I stay distracted. One asked, are you okay? I wanted to tell her everything and also to lie. I chose silence and felt like a coward. Fernando once sent an article about a band I loved and wrote, thought of you. Small things feel intimate. He notices cracks in my defenses and tilts his voice to fill them. I don't know if he's sincere or if I'm giving him space because it's easier than confronting myself. The invitation sits on my dresser like a quiet challenge. Pablo keeps being kind and present. I owe him honesty and I owe myself clarity. For now, I haven't decided. I've been with Pablo since high school. We built a life together and a new coworker. Fernando started paying me attention. I love Pablo, but Fernando's presence pulled at something I didn't expect. I tried to set boundaries and avoid his invites, but he kept finding ways in and my behavior at home got worse. I haven't told anyone. I decided to make him a friend to dull the edge of curiosity, and eventually I agreed to a casual outing because I was tired of dodging him. We met after work for what was supposed to be coffee and a quick bite. He was easy company, listened well, and the conversation felt light in a way that surprised me. When he asked if I wanted to grab a drink later, I hesitated but said yes, telling myself it would be harmless. The bar was small and intimate. We talked about random things, a trip, a childhood memory, a silly fear, and I found myself laughing freely, feeling noticed in the present rather than defined by years of history. At one point he brushed my hand and the moment shifted. We drank more than planned. There was a pause and then he said quietly, "You're different up close." I laughed and he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't like in movies. It was awkward and real and I kissed him back. After that, choices happened quickly. A cab, rain, a longer conversation, another kiss, and then we went to his place. I won't go into details, but we spent the night together. It was my first time with another man, and afterward I felt both exhilarated and sick. The morning after felt like walking through fog. I watched him sleep and thought of the history with Pablo, 10 years, habits, the way he makes coffee, the small predictabilities that had come to mean safety. I texted Pablo a lie about work and then another about crashing at a friend's place. He replied with concern, heart emojis, and the sort of trust that now felt like betrayal. I stared at his messages and wanted to burn the phone. At home I could hardly meet Pablo's eyes. He hugged me and asked in that quiet voice if I was okay. I managed a smile and said, "I'm tired." He said, "All right, tell me tomorrow," and kissed my forehead. The physical comfort should have been relief. Instead it felt like a blade reminding me of what I had damaged. Fernando texted later that day. "Last night felt real," it read. "Want to see you again." My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed a lie, "busy this week," and sent it. He answered, "Okay, tell me when," and added a wink. Even the tiny winks made my heart race. At work he was careful and public, but the looks he gave me suggested he expected more. That expectation both thrilled and terrified me. I started to notice patterns in myself, avoiding deep conversations with Pablo, small excuses to leave the room, and over-apologizing for tiny things. My friends noticed my quietness and asked if I was okay. I said yes and pretended the stress from work was the reason. The secrecy felt like a stain that wouldn't come off. Sometimes I tried to be rational. I told myself I could end it, that I could say it was a mistake and never contact Fernando again. Other times I pictured a life where I left and chased this new feeling. I'd imagine messy fights, the awkward explanations to friends, the cold silences with family. The imagination was vivid and sometimes persuasive. I was scared of hurting Pablo and even more scared of losing what I'd felt for myself when I was with Fernando. There were moments of dizzying guilt. One night I sat on the couch watching a show with Pablo and cried silently because I couldn't stand what I'd done. He held me and said, "Talk to me when you can." I wanted to tell him everything and be honest and ruined, but I couldn't. Part of me clung to the idea that honesty might set us free. Another part clung to the thrill of secrecy. A few days later, Fernando sent a voice note, short, casual, and a link to a song he'd said reminded him of me. I listened alone in my car, the music loud so no one would know I was crying. He texted, "When you're free, coffee?" I wrote back a non-committal maybe and deleted it. That tiny back and forth felt like a secret handshake. My stomach tightened every time his name lit up my screen. Once at work he whispered, "We should hang out, just us," and I answered, "I said maybe." He grinned like he'd won something small. He didn't push in front of others, but the private comments and the way he remembered my favorite dessert made me feel seen in a way that I hadn't in years. It was intoxicating and dangerous. I kept asking myself if I was a coward or someone finally honest about what I needed. Sometimes the answer changed within an hour. The instability of my feelings left me dizzy. I wanted to stop hurting people. I wanted to stop hurting myself. But I also felt paralyzed, as if a coin toss could change everything and I couldn't live with that uncertainty. I know I need to choose, and soon. I don't want to become a person who loses everything because of curiosity, but I also don't want to look back and regret never having tried to understand what I felt. For now, I'm stuck in the middle. I cheated with Fernando after months of temptation. I lied to Pablo about where I slept and kept seeing Fernando in secret. I love Pablo but was torn and couldn't decide between staying or exploring something new. The night it all collapsed, Pablo came home early. I had tried to be careful, but a damp collar and a faint scent gave me away. He packed without drama and said, "I need space." He moved with quiet, efficient movements. No yelling, just the steady hands of someone shocked and deeply hurt. He left with our things, and the apartment felt suddenly like a set for a life that had just ended. At first I felt a guilty relief. The choice I'd avoided had been made for me. Then the weight of what I'd done settled. Pablo stayed with a friend and didn't answer my calls. I sent messages that read like desperate confessions. My apologies felt inadequate even in my own head. Fernando filled the early empty hours with texts, plans, and affection. For a few weeks it was intoxicating to be the center of someone new. But novelty fades. When a new attractive woman started at the office, Fernando's attention drifted. I watched him flirt with her the same way he'd flirted with me, and the pattern hit me like a cold wave. The realization that his charm was a repeatable tactic, not a commitment to me, was humiliating. I confronted him once, asking if he ever meant what he said. He shrugged and said, "I like who I like." That shrug felt like a final verdict. The relief I'd imagined after choosing him evaporated. Instead of belonging, I felt used. I reached out to Pablo again with a long, honest message. No excuses, only what I could admit, that I'd been selfish, curious, and cowardly. He answered carefully that he was hurt and needed time. He didn't promise anything. He said he was working through whether rebuilding was possible. His response was restrained, adult, and painfully fair. In the weeks that followed, I started therapy, trying to understand why I made the choices I did and how to avoid repeating them. I told a few close friends the truth. The conversations were messy but necessary. I began the slow work of making amends, respectful distance when Pablo asked, honest answers when asked, and concrete changes to how I live my life. I won't pretend there's a neat lesson. I made a choice that hurt the person I loved most. I lost the comfort of our shared history and learned that some wounds take a long time to heal. Maybe Pablo will come back. Maybe he won't. Maybe Fernando will be a brief, painful memory. For now, I live with the consequences and try to become someone who won't cause that harm again. Each day I choose small repairs over excuses. I accept time will show whether trust can be rebuilt. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thanks for your attention.